The scene shifts to Duke Beowulf's castle, where Beowulf's heavy-armored knights are standing. Yan teleports out with his companions, stating that they are finally here at the Beowulf castle. In the castle, Cheryl asks Lorina if this is Beowulf territory, while Cruel questions if her hometown has always been this cold. Yan knows that the mission they need to execute here would be to work with the Beowulf household and subjugate the barbarians. As they live in a harsh environment, they are always fighting the barbarians for land where people can live. It's inevitable they would always require more manpower to help. But Yan knows that the bigger problem here would be that the Knights of the North are very prideful, suspecting whether they would actually accept the help of outsiders. Lorina states that she has something to tell all of them. From this point, they will be seeing a lot of things that they would never be able to expect, and asks them to prepare themselves. A person comes in, asking if all of them were sent by the Special Forces. The person greets them, introducing himself as the chief butler, Hans Meringer, of the Beowulf household, and he would like to politely ask them to please go back, calling them uninvited guests. Hans states that the North has never requested any reinforcements or agreed to receive guests, asking if they know about that. Jan knows that Count Hans Meringer is the former knight captain of the Beowulf household. After he retired, he decided to work as a butler in the Beowulf household. He is at least rank 3 or above with his skills. No matter which country he chooses to go to right now, he would be able to become a knight captain. Jan thinks this is utterly ridiculous. He can't believe someone like him is a butler. Lorina comes in, stating that it's been a while, and they are with her on an official mission as part of the Special Forces. She thinks that he has spoken too harshly and asks him to be respectful to them. Hans calls her young miss, as if to get emotional, stating that it has been years since she left on her own accord, questioning if she has to be really that mean to him. He can't believe that she spoke so harshly to him, even though it's been years since they last met, and he can't believe she joined the Special Forces without saying anything. He questions if she is taking the side of the Special Forces instead of him right now, and does she know how worried he was for her? Baffled, Yan questions whether this is really something he wasn't expecting to see. Hans questions the scar on her cheek, asking how dare that old fox of a Special Forces captain let that happen. Lorina states this is why she didn't want to come back. Hans states that there she goes saying bad things again, stating that everyone has been waiting for her to come back, and that was how they managed to find the strength to live on. Lorina tells Hans that she went overboard with her words, noting that his hair has grown all white over the last few years, and asks if he is feeling unwell anywhere. Touched by this, Hans states that she was worried for him. Calling for them, Hans states that the weather is pretty cold, and they have to go inside, where the head chef said he will personally cook something up. The rest of the people who are with Miss Lorina can go with her as well. Hans adds that the patriarch will soon return from his hunt, and once he's back, she should have a meal with him. Lorina tells Hans that she doesn't want to hear any mention of him, and not to speak of others in front of her, as she is going to finish her mission before he returns, and she will leave again. Hans questions if her misunderstanding is still unresolved as she walks off. In the dinner hall, Cruel is angry that they have to wait until Lorina is here, as he can't believe that they have to wait with all this food in front of them, questioning if this is how Beowulf works. He questions why the hell Lorina isn't here yet. Cheryl asks Cruel to be quiet, saying they might really call him a human that's worse than a mutt, to which Cruel replies, if that's what she really wants to say. A maid comes in, asking him to mind his manners, making him cruel and pissed off, questioning if she knows that he is the son of Count Dwight, to which the maid states that she's a maid of the Beowulf household. As Cheryl asks Cruel to calm down since Yan isn't here yet either, Cruel asks where on earth he is. Cheryl explains that he said he had something to do, questioning what he said it was, thinking it was something like he was looking for something that could only be found here. Yan, walking down the alley, reaches the storage of abandoned weapons, recalling that in his previous life, the emperor once rummaged through the whole continent to find a single sword. The primordial dragon slayer, who killed only one, had made 2 sacred swords that could tear through a dragon's corpse. Bahamut killed him and got his hands on one of the sacred swords. The emperor spared no expense or means to look for the other sword, which even the founding emperor couldn't find. He put up an immense reward, mobilized the special forces, and searched throughout the whole country, but couldn't find any trace of it. Just when he was about to give up, he managed to find the sword and said this was the sword that even the founding member couldn't find, that sword that couldn't be found no matter how hard people looked for it. He said that no one expected it to be lying in the corner of the north. Seeing the sword in front of him, Jan states that it's Astalon, the brother sword of Nigling, which passed through him. Jan smiles, knowing that with this sword he won't lose even if it's to the emperor, a completely neglected sword in a corner of the storage. Who would have known that that very sword would be one of the 2 swords left behind by the dragon slayer? The dragon sword Astalon, Jan knows that if it's with this sword he's sure of it. He won't lose even to the emperor. As he tries to touch the sword, he hears a voice coming from the sword, confusing Jan. A sudden bright light emits from the sword as it states that he is not qualified. Jan grits his teeth in pain as he realizes that Astalon has rejected him, cursing that it dares to reject him. Thinking back to when he had touched Astalon, he definitely heard a voice, and it said he was not qualified. From behind, Momon comes in, stating how fascinating it is. Jan asks if she knows what's happening, to which she answers that it doesn't seem like an ego sword that possesses its own ego. It seems to be a weapon that chooses its master. She states that there are times when a weapon possesses some divinity, and in such cases the sword has its own choice to choose its master. Momon teasingly states that to sum things up, Jan has been rejected by the sword because he is too low level for it. Jan, quite upset, questions what she said and asks her to step aside, stating that he's going to kill it today. He uses his skill of Black Wolf to hold the sword, but the light emits, stating that he is not qualified. Jan screams that someone like him is a pretty decent man and tells it not to give him this nonsense and to accept him. The scene shifts to Beowulf Castle as the heavily armored knights are made attentive. The commander announces to the knights that their operation today would be to subjugate the barbarians. It's something they have done many times, but especially for today's operation, no mistakes are allowed because Miss Lorina will be with them. Hans asks Lorina if it's really dangerous, suggesting she doesn't need to go. He advises that they should wait until Patrake gets back, for which Lorina states that she already warned that she doesn't want to hear any mentions of him. She questions if he thinks that she's an idiot, who can't even complete a mission that is given to her. She tells Hans that if that's the case, then she won't see him forever either. They just need to obtain 10 of the barbarian flags, and this will be easier than fighting an ancient. Hans asks her not to underestimate them. The barbarians believe that their tribe flags contain the souls of their ancestors, and they would rather lose their lives than lose their flags. Hans states that since she isn't going to listen to anything he says, he asks Cheryl and Cruel that they must look after Miss Lorina, for which Cheryl affirms to leave it to her, while Cruel states that they are not guards of Beowulf. Cheryl thanks Hans for the clothes, stating without them they would have frozen to death. Lorina questions if Hans gave them to him, noting how considerate he is. Hans states that he doesn't deserve her praise. Lorina wears the team uniform, stating that this is her first mission as a special force member after all, but Jan isn't here, for which Jan teleports in, stating his errand ran a little longer than he thought it would be. Cheryl complains that he didn't even show up at lunch and wonders why he's in that state. Cruel grumbles that he looked terrible and thought he would be grilling meat somewhere. Momon teases Jan that he calls himself a decent man and serves him right for acting so arrogantly. Jan crunches his teeth, telling her to shut up, while Momon asks about giving up on that sword, saying a man that's too persistent is not popular with people. Yan states that he has time anyway. He knows that Nagling's brother's sword, Astalon, can't be wielded unless it acknowledges one, and he needs to find a way to get his hands on it. Lorina states that he might misunderstand, so let her tell him first. This is her first mission as a Special Force member. That's why she's wearing the team uniform. It's pretty durable and comfortable for combat situations. And while its resistance to cold is low, she just needs to wear a coat to resolve that, so he should not dare misunderstand the situation. Yan, quite confused, states that he doesn't know what she's talking about, and it does look very good, making Lorina blush. She shrugs it off, calling for the armored knights to prepare to depart and to open the castle gates. As they are departing, the commander states that all of them should keep their spirits high because Miss Lorina is with them today. Cruel tells Yan that they are country bumpkins making such a big fuss over some barbarians, while Yan knows that the central nobles don't know how fearsome the barbarians are because Beowulf has done a good job defending against them this whole time. But this is a time period where the tribes are united under strong chieftains, and they become an enormous kingdom that threatens even the Kavalan Empire. And this is where he appears, the king of barbarians and the man who is also known as the strongest living being on the earth, Vilai. A country that was born from the warrior alliance kingdom and the alliance of barbarians became an enormous kingdom that threatened even the Kavalan Empire. The king of the warrior alliance kingdom was one of the top 5 enemies that threatened the empire, the strongest living being on earth, Vilai, a strong warrior who was born with an exceptional physique and unusual techniques. What was even more special about him was his ability to figure out the techniques of any of his enemies. In the eyes of the empire, he was the personification of fear itself. In the past, Yan resorted to all means in order to kill him, but none of them succeeded. There aren't a lot of records as to where he is or what he does in this time period. Yan doesn't know where Vilai is right now, but he hopes he doesn't get unlucky and run into him as they depart. The scene shifts toward the northwest forest. Toward the heavy armor knights team, Cruel comments on how much longer they are going to walk. He states it is ridiculous for them to just walk on the endless snow path and asks why the knights need to walk, to which Yan asks him to stop whining, explaining it's hard to use horses during such weather. While the white scenery around them is impressive, it's hard to maintain their sense of direction. Lorina asks what outsiders think of this place. Bleak, and 200 days out of the 365 days are winter. After all, the only thing they can see is Beowulf's snow, and it's too barren and harsh for humans to live here. But there are still people living in these places here, and they are much braver and stronger than anyone else. She respects those people and asks, don't they think that this place continues to grow in beauty as they spend more time looking at it? Yan mentions that it's the pride of a local lord, and Cheryl affirms that this place and Miss Lorina are both beautiful. The knights cheer on, stating that Lorina is the light and the reason for their existence, as they scream that they are with Miss Lorina. The scenery of Beowulf looks beautiful, and they offer their lives for Beowulf and Miss Lorina. The commander asks everyone to stop and asks Miss Lorina if they saw that. Lorina notices a crimson beacon, while the commander states that there's the scout signaling they have discovered barbarians, and if they head there, they will find the barbarians. Cruel smiles, stating that they can finally have some fun, for which the commander states that he is so full of confidence. But he better prepare his heart, as he will be witnessing a sight soon. Cruel asks what he means by that, and if he knows what they have fought so far, goblins, cockatrices, and an ancient lich, to state that barbarians are a joke compared to them. The commander declares to get going as they move on to the area. While the Special Forces members have fought numerous monsters and undergone new training with their lives on the line, they were confident that they could withstand any sights or monsters, but what they saw was a whole new form of cruelty. At a small tribe that could hardly be called a base, a one-sided slaughter took place as the barbarians were pleading to leave the children alone, but they were killed mercilessly. Cheryl questions what all this is, and isn't a knight supposed to follow the code of knighthood and be honorable, protect the weak, and only wield their swords for their lord? But they all look like demons. In fact, it feels like they are the barbarians instead. Cruel shoves his hand to cover Cheryl's eyes, asking her not to look, stating that's not something she should see. Yan is quite surprised that Cruel is still in control, even after seeing blood, thinking that he should be able to control the demonic energy a little bit now. He knows that everyone must be surprised. This is what wars between ethnic groups have always been like. This kind of war isn't the type that happens between armies that have territory to lead. This is the kind that only stops when one side is completely killed, regardless of whether they are grown-ups or children. As a lady of the Beowulf, Lorina must have known about this already, but hearing about it and seeing it in person is completely different. This is the burden that Lorina must carry, while Yan questions whether she would be able to handle it. Suddenly, a certain scream is heard as a little newborn baby cries out for her dead mother. Cheryl tells Cruel that they need to do something and they need to help them, for which Cruel asks if they get involved unnecessarily, they would be in trouble. A knight comes in, stating that it is a lucky child since it doesn't need to live as a barbarian, raising his weapon to kill it. Cheryl screams at him not to do this, but the spear is stopped by Lorina, asking him to stop, stating that this is enough. They have killed everyone who was able to hold a weapon, and they just need to take their tribe's flag. They have to stop here. They won't kill a child like this, and that's what she has decided. Yan comes to think that that's her decision, and all the knights that heard what she said whispered, questioning if she said not to kill a barbarian and if she's joking. With Lorina's remark, the soldiers started to exude fearsome bloodlust.